First of all, congratulations. Great win. Place looked amazing out there. And just give me some thoughts about the match.
Um, Thoughts on the match? I mean, honestly, it was a pretty confident win from us. Didn't have to
Yeah,
use any timeouts, which always feels good.
yeah,
I just kind of showed up today and
yeah,
watched my team win.
yeah.
Um, I would definitely say, we've been going through like a bit of a hard time, I guess, in terms
Hmm.
of like our team's overall
Yeah,
like play.
yeah,
But the guys have definitely stepped it up a lot in practice and just in general to make sure
yeah,
that we can kind of turn this around.
yeah,
One of the things that I said after our Leviathan loss was, this is not the time to be emo because I saw a lot of people looking down, being pretty like depressed, obviously, with like a bad result again. But it's like it's not the time to be emo. Like we have to really just focus in and recognize that we are where we are, and
yeah,
at the end of this all, like we're gonna want to have, stayed positive, kind of focused on what we could actually improve. And with 2 days between our match against Leviathan and this match,
yeah,
we definitely showed a lot of progress. We improved a lot during those 2 days, and it showed in our match today. Obviously, MIBR is a weaker opponent,
hmm,
so we're not like we're not stupid. Like
yeah,
our team definitely notices, that just in general, the play itself is improving.
yeah,
Obviously, we're not playing against like the hardest opponent,
yeah,
but for everybody, it is at least a confident win in the
yeah,
sense that our team play was showing out,
yeah,
and it wasn't only individual play.
yeah,
Obviously, there was a lot of like individual play that also like
hmm,
came to play today, but a lot of our team play was working out well for us as well. So
yeah.
overall, just a good day.
Talking about the bad results, you did say that you didn't, the results weren't as expected, and we have seen this pattern where teams that attend international events and have to stay there a bit longer usually go through a rough patch after the international event. We saw that with Sentinels,
Yeah.
saw that with 102. Do you think it has anything to do with the scheduling, or what do you think is the reason?
I think there's a few factors.
Yeah,
Um, I do think that immediately after a big tournament like that, where you've been grinding for a really long time, having like no hard break period kind of sucks. Our period right before the split, unfortunately, we had like things that we had to do, like sponsor obligations and these kinds of things that also added to our workload. And I think that that was like part of the factor, but honestly, like even that wasn't even that big of a factor. I think if I'm being honest, I would never put the content because I know that that was like always a talking point. I would never say or blame any of that as the reason why we've been kind of like dipping. I would always say that the reason why we were dipping was we were just honestly like really overconfident as a team, and every single player on my team has like really individual instincts is what I'll say. I'd say like last year on EG, uh, Ethan and Com were our most fundamental players, and they were very naturally fundamental. Like
mm,
it doesn't matter if they're on like a confident day, if they're like aiming really well that day, they're still gonna play fundamentally. They're not gonna just peak.
mm,
And I think on our team, I have like a lot of players that are like very skilled mechanically, but also it's not really their usual
yeah,
way to play the game to play fundamental like all the time perfectly. A lot of our players on our team want to just peak. So I think that the better and better we did as a team, we slowly went away from our team play, and that's why we ended up suffering.
yeah,
We had the big win against Foot, and then you can watch every match from there. Our team play got gradually worse. We did win against PRX, which was
mm,
a very nice win, but realistically, we won that game because a lot of individual play and clutches. It
yeah,
wasn't because our team play was magnificent. So, kind of after that Foot match, I think we kind of realized we were the best team in the world in our heads,
yeah,
and that put us in a spot where we were just overconfident. And everybody was just kind of individually peaking a
yeah,
bit too much. Um, so yeah, I mean, honestly speaking, to encompass it all, I would say a lot of our problem isn't necessarily because, uh, yeah, because it was straight after an international. I think it was just the natural development of our overconfidence and our just expecting that basically on game day we're gonna be able to turn up and be a perfect team again. And we had to slowly learn that that's just not how it works. Like we're a
yeah,
team that we need to practice our team play all the time in scrims to make sure that we have a good head on our shoulders, honestly, when it comes to team play, because yeah, a lot of our people on our team are just naturally people that play to peak. So yeah, it's just one of those things that kind of naturally developed in our team, and we've been steadily building it back into a more team play focused mindset.
Yeah. Would you say the Furia loss? Leviathan is still a team that has shown really strong progress. They have really strong pieces. The Furia was very
Yeah.
unexpected. Do you think that sort of worked as a wake-up call for you guys, for the team at least?
Um, I'd say that was a wake up call, but we also we also had a wake up call before that, which was we were about to scrim at NRG,
Yeah.
and somebody on the team said basically, "Yo, let's try our hardest so we can like feel confident," because we were like scrimming another really good team, and we just got blown out. So it's like we all accepted, you know, in this scrim we were all gonna try our hardest and like put in 110%, and then we just got blown out anyway. And I think that was a pretty big eye opener for a lot of people, especially myself. That, you know, there is no on switch, no off on switch where we can just turn it back on and just be
Mm,
back to our peak form. And I mean that's kind of obvious when you like think about it, but um, that was our first one, and that was before the Furia match. About 2 days before the Furia match, we had already understood that we were like in a bit of a slump in terms of our team play. We played the Furia match, and it kind of felt like, you know, back to individual thinking. Um, and then Leviathan, I think Leviathan is just a really good team, and we lost mostly because of map details, not
mm,
necessarily because of like super bad team play. I think there was moments of it for sure, but I would put that one on a lot of like map details, I'd say.
mm.
But yeah, we've been slowly rebuilding it, and I'm definitely feeling super confident from this
Yeah,
point on that we're gonna like keep this upward trend.
yeah.
Uh, like I said, it was not the hardest opponent today, but definitely a lot of good signs and a lot of good moments where people are like team fighting together
Mm,
and actually like waiting for one another so that we can make it a team fight.
mm. Your next match would be against Evil Geniuses. They
Yeah,
did lose their recent game, but they have been looking very strong. They have different compositions. You have worked with Powder, and she's always great with
yeah.
anti-statting and making new compositions and taking theory crafting more or less. What would be the plan for them or a team which would uh, might bring a surprise for you?
Um, I mean, to be honest, I think that most teams don't change too much between weeks, and I know. I mean, Potter's a coach that likes a lot of reps, and I think that it's very unlikely they would change too much.
Mm,
Like they'll probably stick to what they're already doing.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, honestly, we're just gonna treat it like any other team. We're gonna watch their film. We're gonna study and see if we see anything that we think we could, you know, basically play around. But mostly, we just focus on our own game plan and just tweak little details based on what we see. Our anti-stratting isn't like too crazy. Um, yeah, we're just gonna basically focus on our own game. Is the best way to put it.
Yeah. You obviously mentioned that your team is made of players who want to peak, and now there are more agents in the game that, somehow enable that behavior where Clove, for if Bang wasn't Clove, he could have gone for more aggressive plays. Have you thought of
Yeah.
incorporating these new agents which are not in the meta or were in the meta currently, but a lot of teams are experimenting with it? Are you planning to, or do you have these agents in mind? And if you haven't incorporated them yet, why haven't you?
I mean, I'm just a person that really thinks about identity a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really mind if I go against the grain in some ways in terms of the meta. Uh, and I don't really care honestly if we play the exact thing that is the meta. I think the most important thing for me is just if it makes sense for my players
Hmm.
and what my players are comfortable doing and how I think my players will find success doing it. Um, so that's why I mean, for example, like EU is one of the best scan initiators in
Hmm.
the world. So obviously, I want to put him on scan initiators. It's like
Hmm.
one of those things where it's like, you know, on Bind, nobody put a scan initiator on the map until we did, and we're just gonna keep with that trend. Um, if I think that something will fit in a comp and fit one of my players, then I'll play it on the map. That's
Hmm.
pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. Uh, Irrespective of you using it or not, what are your thoughts about the recent agent changes where we see Riot sort of nerfing Raze and bringing in more duelists so that all of them we see a much of diversity? Do you think that's a good change per se?
Um, I would say that the changes were not great for us for sure.
Hmm.
But I would say that they make sense overall. I mean, I like to see more duelists in the meta. It feels like every single duelist has been played at this point, outside of maybe Phoenix. Um, I mean, I think he was played in EMEA a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's like he's still very rarely played. But to see all of the agents being played is pretty cool. I won't lie. Coming from a game like League, where you have like 130 characters and only 10 can get picked in a game,
Yeah.
and usually only like half the pool is actually played at like
Yeah.
any given patch. Seeing all of the agents being picked is a good sign for like the balance
Yeah.
team overall. So I've been pretty happy with that. Feels like there's a lot of options for a lot of maps on what you can run on a comp now.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, there will still be meta comps, but right now it feels like really solid in terms of like the variability. It just feels like you can play anything. You just have to game plan around it,
Yeah.
and as long as you play to its win conditions, you'll be at least somewhat successful on the map.
Yeah. You obviously are one of the top teams going into playoffs, or at least in contention to playoffs. And one of the biggest change for you, for the teams, for the playoffs would be the map pool change, where Abyss would come in, replacing Split. Uh, do you like this move where Riot sort of did a double map pool change where they brought in Heaven first, replacing Breeze, and then they'll eventually bring Abyss only for playoff?
I don't really like that they're adding in Abyss for like the most important playoffs. I'm gonna be honest. I think that's probably like the weakest part of this whole thing.
Mm,
I think I would have much rather us just jumped straight into 2 new maps rather than
mm,
having to do this long waiting period where basically I mean all the tier 2 teams at this point are pretty much stopping scrimming Split entirely. So there's like a bit of a Split scrim drought in a way,
yeah,
and that might have been one of the factors for why MIBR picked Split today. But at this point, like, who can really know? Um, but yeah, I mean, I would have much preferred adding both in at the same time so that we actually have like a lot of practice going into our most important playoffs. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, this playoffs is your champs qualification, and to add a whole new map, there's so many teams that I mean, for example, in the Alpha group, I believe they're called. Um, those teams have a bye week. During their bye week, for example, Sentinels, they don't play this upcoming week. Therefore, they could scrim Abyss the entire time leading up to playoffs, and then they can have their one more match, and then they have Abyss in playoffs.
yeah,
For us, we play all the way through. We play every single match, and we have a small break before playoffs. So it's like we have, basically like a week, and we don't even know if putting games into Abyss is even going to help us right now because obviously we're not locked for playoffs. So it's just like a weird spot to be in where the top teams like Leviathan, who know they're pretty much guaranteed for playoffs, are obviously going to be scrimming the map. Teams in the Alpha group that are pretty much locked, also going to be scrimming the map. Whereas the teams in the Omega group are going to be playing the whole time. For us, I think our biggest gap that we have between games at this point is like 3 or 4 days.
mm,
So when we have 3 or 4 days to prepare for a match, like it's hard to just put a few Abyss scrims in there
mm,
and introduce the map, introduce a comp. So I mean, I think that there's going to be huge advantages based on the actual schedule, just in
yeah,
general for teams going into playoffs, looking at Abyss. So I do expect a lot of teams are just going to straight swap their permaban, but even then, now you have to play your permaban maps. So there's a lot of downsides to this idea in terms of the map introduction. That yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of.
yeah. I mean, I've run out of time, so this is my last question. You did mention about League and the 150 characters, and we also
Yeah.
have a champion ban in League. Do you think some that sort of thing might come across to Valorant, find its way to Valorant, where there would be time when there are too many agents, so that teams would have an option to ban an agent? Do you think that would work in Valorant? And do you think that it would be or would be a possibility?
Um, I don't think right now, and I don't think in the foreseeable future, because I think the cadence that they're adding characters right now is very good,
Mm,
and it's not going to reach a high enough number to justify adding bans for a very long time.
yeah,
Like imagine you're playing Breeze, and the enemy team first bans Viper.
yeah,
Like, what can you really do? Like you pick Harbor, the other team they no longer have like a slicing
yeah,
wall that goes through the whole bomb site. So I think picks and bans won't be for a long time. It would have to be like many years down the line
Yeah.
if there's too many characters. But I think League had this period where they were introducing a new character like every 2 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that, and they slowly started slowing it down. But that's why theirs is so insane because for such a long period of time, they had just like a cadence of every 2 weeks there's a new character. Whereas Valorant, I think it's something like what, like 2 or 3 a year. So yeah, it won't be like that for a very long time, and you would have to make a lot of characters that have similar ideas,
Yeah.
or else they're gonna be you're just gonna be scraps for options on certain maps.
Yeah.
Like Breeze is the best example. Like I think Viper's probably 100% pick rate on that map. So yeah,
Yep. Thank you so much for your time. All the best for the easy
thank you,
game and the following loud game. I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a good one.